Hello and welcome back to the 12th man. Just before we start, I want to wish everyone that's been watching a happy new year. Really hope you enjoyed the holiday period. I certainly have. Obviously, haven't been out too far of all what's going on at the moment. And the restrictions are obviously now in their second week of lockdown. So it's difficult times for everyone. But we're just going to try and get through it and move past it and see where we are at the end of it. Hopefully, it is only for 6 weeks. I do envisage it'll be longer, but we can only do what we can do, and that is try and stick to the guidelines and try and keep everybody safe. Um, Now, we spoke on the last show about football. It's a good thing that's going to be going on, and that's where we're going to start tonight because there has been rumours this week that the Premier League football could be stopping. Obviously, there's been three postponements now in the last 2 weeks. Seen numerous players, numerous coaches, numerous physio staff, all included on it. A lot of cases in the Premier League. Um, a lot of a lot of players and coaches, for example, having to self isolate. But the issue with this virus is sometimes you can be symptomatic. Um, you can be carrying the virus before showing any symptoms, and that's how it spreads around a camp, for example. Um, and we've seen this week, most notably, the Everton Man City was cancelled on Monday, and then Wednesday Spurs Fulham. We've also seen Sheffield United manager Chris Wilder said that they've had loads of cases as well. So at the moment, it doesn't look good. But after the postponement of the Spurs game on Wednesday, the Premier League did make a statement. They said that they have full confidence in their protocols and they don't envisage that they'll have to stop because they do feel like they're operating within the guidelines. I think the only way it will stop is if the government intervene. It seems to be that the Premier League won't stop no matter how bad it gets in terms of if they're having to cancel loads and loads of games, because technically it'll have to be the government that stops elite sport from continuing. Um, and the Premier League are in a difficult situation at the moment because obviously in the UK there's a lot of COVID about, as well here in Ireland as well. There's loads of it. Across Europe, I'm not too sure on situations, but I'm not too aware of our games in our leagues like Spain, Italy, France, all the major leagues. I'm not too sure on how many games have been called off in them leagues. I haven't heard too much about it, so I'm assuming there hasn't been any games called off, and that means European competitions will continue. The Euros at the end of the season is still going to go ahead as planned. So the Premier League don't really have any option. They can't really. There's been talk of a circuit breaker where we stop for two weeks, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then continue it on. There's simply no time in the calendar, no room. We're already starting. We started the season in September, and the season's scheduled to finish in May with the Euros starting in June. So if they do stop, there's no real chance they replay these games. Obviously, this year there's no winter break either because there basically just has no room. You're seeing a lot of teams having to play in January. They're playing midweek as well, game weeks to try and catch up. And there's just, in my opinion, if they stop, it's going to create more hassle towards the end of the season. Say, for example, there was loads of games getting called off in the next 4 weeks. But what'll probably happen is, I think the last game of the season is the 23rd of May. If, for example, the likes of Spurs, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, all these teams that are on European competitions, and they were to go far, like if they were to get to the semi final or the final, or unless they were to go far in the FA Cup as well, there's not much they can do about it really because there's no real free time. So what they could possibly do with their games is at the end of the season, similar to what they did last season, obviously not as many. Um, there was nine, most teams at 9 games. Some had 10 on the restart last year, and they played them within a space of 6 weeks. So what could happen is if a team has 3 or 4 games in hand at the end of the season, they'll probably just run them out within maybe 2 weeks. Um, but at the same time, what will that do with the integrity? If, for example, say Liverpool's played their 38 games, but United's got 2 games in hand, I'm not sure what way the Premier League would work that. I know what they try and do in the last of the seasons, have all teams kicking off at the same time. But this year, I don't know whether an exception would be made if, for example, there was just no room for United, for example, to play catch up. I'm not saying it will be United, just giving them as an example. They were 4 points behind Liverpool, but they had 2 games in hand. Obviously, United would know if they won them 2 games, they would be champions. Liverpool played their 38 games. They'd have to sit and watch. I'm not sure what the Premier League would make of that, but I just know it. This year it would be an extreme circumstance if something else to happen. It will be interesting. There's so many scenarios. I just looked at the calendar from a Spurs point of view, and I was thinking we've got this Fulham game to come up, but from our next 3 weeks, 3 weeks going to be in March, and that's if we're out of the FA Cup. If we're in the FA Cup in March again, it's going to have to be pushed back. And if we were to go far in the Europa League, I'm just not sure when the game will be played, because there's a lot of, see the weeks, for example, that the European teams ain't playing in Europe. it's because there's a midweek game and you're and the Premier League to play as well, so they can't really play them in an hour midweek when they have a game. So it's really really messed up at the moment, and you can see at the top of the table so messed up because you've got like Man City are 7 points behind um, Liverpool, but they've played 2 games less. So if they would have won them 2 games, they'd only a point behind. We've seen Manchester United, they're 3 points behind, but they've played a game less. So if they already won that game, they would be level. So at the moment, it's just causing a lot of confusion. The table is almost false because you've got teams maybe sitting sixth or seventh, but they've played 2 games less. So they would really, if they've won them 2 games, be sitting maybe top or second. So at the moment, it's just a mess. Hopefully, they can get these games done quickly. We know Manchester United and Man City. They missed their first games of the season. Now they have been rescheduled this week. Manchester United's game against Burnley is actually 4 days before they play Liverpool in January now, so that could really, really make an interesting game in January. If United were to won that and both teams were to stay equal going into that game, they would have the same amount of points, and that would be a massive, massive game with them 2 teams at the top of the table. So again, everybody's priority at the moment will be we will not want our own games getting cancelled. I mean, everybody wants to play their own games when they're scheduled because you do not want to be playing catch up psychologically and just in terms of having to fit so many games in towards the end of the season as well. So it is probably luck of the draw. For example, it can be just the team you're playing. For example, this week Spurs were to play Fulham, so Fulham's had loads of cases with COVID, so whoever their opponents were going to be couldn't play the game. So it is luck of the draw, but the way it is going at the moment, I would say by the end of the season, I'll be shocked if there's one team in the league that's played their whole 38 games and the schedule is supposed to be. I can envisage a lot of teams getting COVID and having to reschedule games. So it could be that everyone suffers the same fate as our teams have so far. So just to round that up, my hopes are that we can get as most games done as we can and that the football continues. I've seen Gary Neville saying this week that it is different than when it was back in March because we all know about the coronavirus now. There is safety protocols on there, and would stopping for 2 weeks really make a big difference? Probably not. So my opinion is it should go on, but if it was stopped, I can understand why it would be as well. But I do think it will come down to the government, and if the government can continue to let it run on, then the Premier League will just keep going. So the Premier League itself had a busy Christmas period. Didn't do a show midweek, was really busy with stuff. So just a round up, we obviously seen top of the table. I've been talking about them a lot in the show. Liverpool, they're at the moment they're an absolute nightmare to predict because every time you think they've turned a corner and they're going to go on a run of maybe 10 or 11 games consecutively, one of them, it doesn't seem to happen. Obviously, they beat Spurs and beat Palace 7-0, and you're thinking, right, Liverpool, they're going to have top year now. And then they draw with West Brom at home and draw with Newcastle away, open the table back up for everybody. You think when Manchester United then draw with Leicester, they've missed their chance to close the gap, but they get that chance again when they beat Wolves with a last minute goal, and all of a sudden, Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer are sitting 3 points behind Liverpool at the top of the table, played a game less. And you have to say at the moment they're firmly in the title race. Now, for me, the title race doesn't start until March or April because that's when you start looking at your opponent's games and you're getting down to the business end of the season. But everybody that was looking to win the league this year, target would have been saying, let's just try and keep pace with Liverpool. And at the moment, Manchester United are doing that. Now, we are coming up to the halfway point of the season, so Liverpool, at the moment, you can't really say they are going to go on a run out one games because they've had plenty of chances to go and do it. I don't know what it is where they're dropping the standards of the rest of the teams because for me, Liverpool are miles ahead of Manchester United, Man City, Spurs, Chelsea, all these teams at the moment. We look at how they were last year. Man City's on decline. Now they haven't really got any better this year. United, you could say, are getting better, but they're still, if Liverpool were anywhere near they were last year, they'd be well clear now. So they're still well off Liverpool in terms of where they've been over the last couple of years. You could look at it and say, maybe Liverpool are in decline, but for me, I don't think they are. They're still, still the same. It's too short a space of time. I don't know what it is, if it's a motivation thing, whether it's just these no fans that's impacting a lot of the team's performances. It's become a very inconsistent league. You don't really see too many teams stringing 5-6 results together. Now, I know Everton have done it, but they're only won the last 4 games. And they won their first 4 games at the start of the season as well, but they went on a bad run as well. So there's no real team at the moment you could say you could hang your hat on and go, right, they're going to go on a run now and they're going to win 5, 6, 7 games. At the moment, it just doesn't seem to happen. I don't know if it's they're dropping to the standards. Klopp's been making a few excuses. a lot of fans I've been talking to have been saying, "Oh, our defensive problems or injuries." For me, their defense hasn't been that bad. Obviously, the Villa game at the start of the season were the one you think they shipped 7 goals, but they had Van Dijk then. Um, and you look at it since then, they haven't really. I don't think anyone scored 2 goals, 2 goals past them. A lot of their draws have been 1-1, and they have kept a few clean sheets too. So the problem is the games are drawn. They're not scoring enough goals on for me. They've had a 0-0 draw at the week, but they've had a lot of 1-1 draws. So only scoring 1 goal a game. Um, in this league, it's never really enough. You rarely really see teams keeping loads and loads of clean sheets. I remember watching Jamie Carragher at the start of the season when they were asking about Van Dijk and stuff and how they miss him. But he was actually saying that Liverpool last season, a lot of the games they won, they still conceded 1 goal in their games. So they do have a record going back the last couple of years where they always do concede a goal. But the big thing Liverpool always had is that yes, they were strong enough and they didn't concede more than 1 goal, but they had loads of goals in their team. You could bank on that front three scoring 3 or 4 every game, or at least 2 most weeks. At the moment, that isn't happening. As you say, they smashed seven past Palace, but then they don't really follow it up. A 1-1 draw and then a 0-0 draw. So they've only scored 1 goal in the last 2 games after scoring 7. So they have become an inconsistent side this year. I'm not sure why that is. You look at they have had a few injuries, but that front three has usually been so productive for them. You've seen the other night Salas, but obviously their top goal scorer, and he's the league's top goal scorer, with 13 goals, but he did miss a few chances the other night. There's obviously been a bit of criticism of Firmino not scoring enough goals. He has been chipping on me a couple lately, but obviously at the start of the season he wasn't scoring. Mane, at the moment, he's went off the boil a bit. I think it was Klopp that said, I can't believe it was only 1 goal in the last 6 or 7 games. It was in his press conference. Because he does play it well, but he's just not scoring at the moment. And that is the big issue. You could say a lot of their draws, Liverpool this year, they haven't played that well in. I thought against Newcastle, they did create a lot of chances, and on our day, they do won that game. Obviously, they ran into a keeper in form, and Newcastle did defend with honour. But it's just finding the way they won. And at the moment, Liverpool just don't seem to be doing it consistently enough. And they have give all these other teams now a chance. If they can find out even anywhere near that level they were last year, they'll still probably run away with it. But as time goes on, you are starting to wonder if that's going to happen. Or is it just going to be one of them years where a team that gets 81, 82 points will win it. And it is starting to look that way. You are waiting for Liverpool to turn that corner. But we're at the halfway stage now, coming up in the next few games, and that sort of does give you an outlook for the rest of the season. So at the moment, it's just really, really hard to call. I mean, I'm sitting here every week trying to make predictions, and it's crazy because you just look at results and you just can't seem to put your finger on, why some results are going wrong. So, Liverpool's biggest challenger at the moment is Manchester United. Now, they've really surprised me this season. At the start of the season, I really didn't think they'd be anywhere near it. Obviously, with the way the league is, it's opened it up for a lot of teams. Like I was even Spurs have been terrible the last 3 or 4 games, and they're still sitting. They're 7 points behind, but they have a game in hand. If they really won that, they'd only be 4 points off top. Thinking, how can we be 4 points off top with some of the games we played in this year? So it is just a really, really poor standard. I can't remember a league that has such a poor standard. I even go back. You can go back to the year Leicester won it. They were still consistent. They still did. Done a lot of. They won a lot of games. And at the moment, it just doesn't seem to be happening. But when it comes to United, at the moment, you have to say they probably are the team that are looking the most consistent. Now, they didn't play that well against Wolves, but they did find a way to win. There was a lot of luck about the goal. But the one thing I would say about United is probably got the most. People are saying he's the best. He is up there, but Bruno Fernandes is the most informed player in the league. If you go from January last year to now, so a full year since he's come on United, been very, very strong. He's produced a lot of goals now. He scored a lot of penalties, so that does bump up his stats as well as a midfielder. But he does score a lot of goals from midfield. His assists as well is pretty good. I think his season he scored 10 goals and I think 10 assists or something like that. So not 10 goals, 10 assists, something like that. There anyway, he's been absolutely flying. And if you can get them goals from midfield, that's probably where Liverpool are lacking at the moment. That front three don't score for Liverpool. There's no real goals in the team. Whereas United at the moment, they've got Cavani, he's going to be suspended now, but they've got Bruno Fernandes as well with Rashford, Martial. So they've got that extra goal scorer on midfield as well. Pogba chips on with a few when he wants to. But, they probably do have a lot more goal scorers in their team. And at the moment, United fans will be thinking they've got a good chance I was a United fan, I'd be excited because you look at that team and you think the way the league's going, and if Liverpool aren't going to pick up, then we've got a great chance of winning this league. I'm going to be interested to see how that game in a few weeks' time at Anfield, how it pans out. But Liverpool do tend to turn up in them games. It's just at the moment it seems to be like Liverpool. I was saying they've drew 4 of their games against bottom 6 teams. So that just goes to show you they're struggling against teams they are really should be beating. But it's just so hard to call. United have a big game now on New Year's Day against Villa. That's gonna be a cracker. I'm really looking forward to this one. Might be slightly surprised at my predictions for it, but I really do rate Villa. I was actually chatting to a boy last night. I was actually saying I think Villa could be a good shout for at least the top 6 this year, and possibly outsiders for the top 4. I would not rule them out. And for me, people will disagree, but my favourite player in the Premier League at the moment is Jack Grealish. I just love watching him. Actually, I was chatting about it as well. We were on about who was better, Bruno or Jack Grealish. For me, I'm biased. I will say I do like Grealish a lot. People fire out stats, and you can't argue with them. Bruno has got better stats, and he's playing on a better team, and he's probably producing it a lot more. For me, Grealish, I think he could really find that extra level. I think there's going to be a massive scrap for him in the summer. All the big teams are going to be after him, and if, for me, he walks into every team in the league. Bruno does as well. And if I had to pick between one of them, I probably would pick Jack Grealish just because we think he's got that wee bit more about him. Bruno is a fantastic player, and it will be interesting to see the two of them together now against each other. I think that'll ultimately come down to who decides the game. I think if Grealish is on it, Villa are a threat for any team because he's such a good player. And if he's one of them games, it'll be a really hard night for United. Fernandes turns up in nearly every game, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had a big game as well. It'll be a really good game. As I said, I think Villa are a very dangerous team. I'm going to get straight to my prediction for that game. I'm actually going to tap Villa 1-2-1. Just have a feeling Grealish. There's a lot of talk about United looking for him. So I think Grealish is going to be really at it tonight, and I think he's going to really fancy himself. Getting a goal and maybe affecting the game. So I'm going to go for a Villa 2-1-1. People will probably think I'm mad, but it wouldn't be the craziest result of the season. I don't think anybody would say Villa aren't had a chance tonight. They beat Liverpool 7-2. They went away to Arsenal, won 3-0. Drew with Chelsea, 1 each. They have to play Man City and Spurs yet, but they've had some really good results. They did Palace last week, beat 10 men, 3-0. So they're a really good side. And not just Grealish as well. They've got other players like Watkins and McGinn, Barkley, El Ghazi's on fire at the moment as well. So they're one team at the moment I wouldn't want to be playing. But it should be a really good game because both teams like they go forward. Villa will not. It won't be like Wolves there, where Wolves sat back. Villa will come out and have a go. They took Chelsea on the other night and they could have won the game. They obviously finished with a draw. But it should be a really good game. I'm looking forward to that one. So obviously moving on, just to round up the rest of the league. We've had back-to-back ones. Obviously been very critical of Arsenal for the last few weeks, but credit where credit's due. Back-to-back ones for Arsenal and Arteta takes a lot of pressure off Arteta. I think on them games he did need results. I don't think the board would have let it run on much longer if they had got a few more bad results. But obviously they blew Chelsea away, and I actually said on this podcast a few weeks last week, I fancied them to get a result. Now I went with a draw, but I just thought that it was the type of game Arsenal might turn up on, and Chelsea have had a bit of head up. I think speak about them in a minute, but they've had a bit of head up. So I thought it was a good chance for them. They avoid pressure up off them, and they went out and played really well. And they won the game 3-1. Could have been more. Then for sort of 80 minutes they were dominant. The last 10 minutes Chelsea probably could have got a 3-3 draw, but for 80 minutes they were fantastic. Move on, then they played Brighton. They were very poor in the first half. It was really poor game. I didn't really enjoy watching it, to be honest. It was a bit of a scrap between two teams that were down there. Brighton lack a lot of quality going forward, and you just felt one goal would be the winner if Arsenal got it. And like I said, comes on and gets that goal, and I have to say in the second half Arsenal were a lot better and they got their one deservedly. Takes a lot of pressure off them. They go to play West Brom now at the weekend, and if they can win that, all of a sudden they're looking up and not down anymore. So I'm sure Arsenal fans will be buzzing with the Christmas fixtures. But it will be interesting to see after that how they pick up. Is it just a couple of games and then they go back, or are they going to try and kick on now? And if they kick on, then you have to say well done to Arsenal for sticking by Arteta in a really difficult time. Chelsea, Spade lost that game, and it's been a really poor Christmas period for them. They've only had 1-1 in the last 5, and obviously Lampard's under a lot of pressure, and they lost 3 of them games as well. So Lampard's under a lot of pressure. I'm hearing talk about him. Chelsea possibly looking at his position. Now we know with Chelsea they won't wait out the way Arsenal have. If they think results aren't good enough, they will pull the plug. I think it would be extremely harsh on Lampard. I think he's done a decent job. He's obviously lost that cup final last year, but he did finish in the top 4 last season and he had a transfer ban. I think the pressure comes this year. He spent 250 million, and you see this a lot with teams. They have brought in a lot of players, and it does take a bit of time to gel. At the start of the season, I was tapping them up. They have a really, really good season, but they've had a bit of a They've lost ZH again, and ZH does seem to be key. They how they're playing. When ZH has been missing, they haven't been winning games at the start of the season, and now again. And he was playing that middle part. Chelsea were a different team. And I've seen a stat they already. I think the highest placed team they've beaten the league's Leeds. And Leeds are sitting around 13th or 12th or 13th, I think it is. Maybe a wee bit higher, maybe 11th, 12th. But I don't think they're even in the top half. So they haven't been a top half team this year. And that is a big concern. You haven't really got any chance of finishing in that top four if you're not beating most of the teams in the league. So that'll be the big concern for Chelsea. In the big games, you just haven't been winning them, and that's been down to bad performances. And I think like some of the chances Werner's been missing. He's obviously going through a really tough time, but Werner's been missing a lot of chances. I think he's brought Giroud back in again, and he has to try and stick with Giroud at the moment because Werner's just not doing it. And for me, looking at him, he just does not. Sometimes the players need time to settle. I think with Havertz, he needs a bit of time to settle. Pulisic has obviously been hot and cold, but he looks like a player that could produce. But Werner, to me, just looks like a player he's not going to suit the Premier League. He's very thin. He's going to have to try and beef up a bit. He's very strange the way I think sometimes he runs with a ball. I'm just not sure. Sometimes he almost feels like he's going to fall over. I mean, he obviously had a really, really good time at Leipzig, and I really thought he would go on and do really well at Chelsea, and I was surprised that Liverpool didn't sign him because they were linked with him. But it just looks like at the moment he's well off it. I mean, he's third choice at the moment behind Abraham as well. So I'm just not sure where Werner is at the moment and where Lampard is with him. And the big issue is a lot of them. His two big signings of summer was Havertz and was Werner. At the moment they aren't producing, and that does put more pressure on Frank. I do think he deserves to at least end the season, and then they can possibly decide if they don't make a top four. Then based on the season as well, how poor the standard is, not finishing in the top four for Chelsea would be probably unacceptable, and he probably would lose his job. But you would like to see him get down the season unless results really take a really bad turn. But you would expect him to pick up again. If Man City on Sunday, and they could be hitting them at a good time with these COVID cases. We'll get to the predictions that are on, but I really do think they could be hitting them at the right time. Spurs obviously next they drew 1-1 away at Wolves, and have to say very, very disappointed with this because scoring an early goal, like the Spurs were up after 45 seconds, and you think, right, let's go on, get this third, back to one ways. And the game was there for them. Seen the first sort of 15-20 minutes, Wolves look very, very average. I mean, not the Wolves of old. They've obviously lost. They've lost Jota. They Liverpool. We know how good a player he is. They've obviously lost Jimenez to injury. But two of their best players they've lost. Doherty's obviously went to Spurs. He was obviously a big threat from right back. And they immediately just aren't the same team that they were a couple of years, the last 2 years when you feared them. You sort of thought Wolves tough game. I'm not saying they're easy anymore, but you don't think they carry the same threat. So I was like, all right, let's get at them. 2-3-0, game over. But after the first sort of 20 minutes, Spurs sort of reverted back to that sort of let's sit on, defend deep, and in the end, it got worse in the second half. And we got so far deep, it was impossible to break out. And this is becoming a pattern. Against Palace, it was the same. Just sat so deep in the second half and didn't really have a shot until we fell behind again. And then at the end of the Palace game, they probably should have won it. The keeper made a couple of good saves, but from them until the 82nd minute, nothing in the game. Same against Wolves. Wolves scored in the 86th minute. Spurs hadn't a shot in the whole game, and then in the last sort of 6 or 7 months, including added time, Spurs come out, looked a bit more positive, and they could have got a goal at the end. So I just don't get the tactics at the moment. I can understand defending maybe two goal leads and 3 goal leads because games should be over that. But defending a 1 goal lead especially for as long as we're doing it for, you're just inviting pressure onto yourself. And as you say, it's an our set piece. Set piece defending's been an issue this season. But it can happen, like you've seen against Liverpool. Salah scored the deflected goal. When you're sitting that far deep, you see me Wolves last night, or on Tuesday night against United, deflected goal. And when you're sitting so deep, you do bend it on. And then it just angered me more when I see Wolves against United, how poor they were. United absolutely, well, I'm not saying they battered them with chances, but they dominated the game, created enough chances they probably wanted. Didn't do it. But overall, they looked comfortably in control, and Wolves never really looked like scoring. Against us, it was a complete opposite. Because of how we played. And, for me now, he's had some good results this year, Mourinho, with Spurs, but they're wiping them results out with games they should be winning. There's no good beating Man City, I'm good beating Arsenal, and drawing away at Chelsea if you're going to draw with Wolves, draw with Palace, lose to Leicester. So there's no real benefit in doing that. So for me now, he's going to have to try and take a handbrake off slightly. start of the season, Spurs but 6 past United and 5 past Southampton. So there's the play. I mean, play to the team strengths. The team strengths is goal scoring. I think one final will credit them. Spurs are a lot better defensively. Højbjerg's obviously made a big difference. That they aren't conceding goals for fun. So you think if they were to get 2 or 3 goals in a game, they'd probably be able to see it out. And that's what he's going to try and do, because if Spurs keep dropping these points against these teams, and then fans are obviously on his back because the style of play is awful. I have to admit, the style of play is shocking, and I really said when he came in, and obviously when he was doing what he was doing, he had to get results. I think the first season he came in was a write-off. He had a lot of injuries, and it's his first real season. It wasn't really his team. You can't really judge him. But this is his first full season, and I'm looking to see improvement. Seen improvements in some departments, but now it looks like it's going our way. Kane and Son aren't obviously getting as many chances because of how defensive we are, and it's almost like we'd be better maybe being 0-0 until the last 15 minutes, then having a go. Because the problem is when we score early now, the tactics are right. Let's sit back, and then it's inviting pressure on, and these teams scored it, and there's not enough time to react. Therefore, we're dropping points. And you've got Leeds now coming on Saturday, and I just can't get my head around this, because you've got Leeds. Don't get me wrong, they're playing some great football. They're a newly promoted team to the Premier League, and I can sort of tell how the game's going to go. They're going to come to our place and completely dominate the ball, and we're going to sit back, invite them on this, and try and hit them on the counter attack. Now, they're obviously, for me, that they're not just the team that's coming out of the Championship. They are a lot better than most Championship teams, but doesn't player for player, Spurs are a lot stronger. So it doesn't sit right with me that we're going to sit back and counter and let them come on to us and us try and counter attack them. I just don't get it. And if they have 70% of the ball, again, I just don't see why we would allow that to happen. Hey, if we won the game 2-0 or 1-0 or 2-1, stats don't really mean anything, and that's what I'm saying. Results, you need results when you play this way. If we get beat 3-1 or 3-2, and Leeds dominate the game, like, people are going to go, well, why are you sitting back? Why are you inviting them on? So it is a catch-22. For me, I would be looking to get at Leeds. I think they're awful at the back. You will be exposed to counter-attacks and stuff, but you take your chances. We've got better players than Leeds. We should be beating them. You see what United did to them. They put 6 past them, and only scored 5 against West Brom the other night. But for me, this is a game we should be going out on the front foot. But we know it's not going to happen. There's no point in me sitting here saying, "Oh, Mourinho's going to change," because we know he's not going to change. And this has been his downfall at every club he's been at. He refuses to change even when things go wrong. He believes in a certain style. It's won him trophies before, and you can't argue with that. But it is why players were turned against him, and it is why he gets sacked. So if he does, Spurs have another couple of results like this here, and the players start losing faith, I think you look at how happy the players were over the last few weeks when they were beating Man City and beating Arsenal and stuff, because the style got them the victories. But if the style now starts costing them victories against these teams, then you're going to see players go the other way. And this is the problem. It's going to, not just the fans need results, the players need results. Because if the players stop believing in the style, then the manager's finished. So for me, he needs to win this game and get back on track. And Spurs need to start scoring goals again. The goals have really, really dried up in the last few games. And although we've got better defensively, I don't think Spurs have the defence where he had at Chelsea, where 1 goal was enough. Spurs don't have that. And as I said, even at that, you're still taking a big chance, because you see there's deflections, penalties now given for ridiculous handballs. So it is a lot more dangerous to do it now. And for me, he has to try and find a way of, yes, being cautious. I understand it at times, but just picking a handbrake off slightly and trying to get more goals, because ultimately the manager will pay the price. So getting onto the predictions for this week, Everton West Ham was the early game. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Everton, they've done a good run recently, but West Ham will be difficult opponents. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. But Everton are doing really, really well after that dip they had. They've bounced back big time when they're sitting up there in the top. I think they're top, sitting third, and they're only 3 points behind Liverpool, I think, as well. So they're having a great season. Moving on to the 8 o'clock game, Man United against Villa. I've already said I've gone for a 2-1 Villa 1. I think that's be the game of the weekend. It'll be a really, really entertaining game. Moving on, Spurs Leeds. This could also be a very entertaining game because of the way Leeds play. They'll come out and Spurs will probably end up sitting back, and it'll end up being quite a decent game to watch. I actually think Leeds are going to win. I think Spurs at the moment are just, I just don't know what's happening with the style. And I think if Leeds score first, Spurs won't have much answer to it. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Leeds victory, and I would really put pressure on Jose Mourinho. Now, Palace play Sheffield United at 3 o'clock. I'm going to go for a Palace 2-1 victory. Sheffield United have been struggling big time. all season. And at the moment, it just doesn't seem to be getting any better for them. Their luck's out completely. Um, and I think Palace will have enough quality about them to get a one. Interestingly, they do seem to be sticking Chris Wilder no matter what at the moment. I'm not sure how much longer that'll go on, but maybe they're prepared to wait it out. Maybe they think a new manager won't really change it anyway. They are quite adrift at the moment, so maybe they just think they either resign the relegation or they think if Chris can't do it, then no one can. Brighton play Wolves at 5:30. This will be a tough one to call. Wolves, the moment, are really, really struggling with a lack of goals in the team. And Brighton's the same, no real quality, no real goal scorers. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 0-0. I'm going to go for a 1-1. Hopefully, it's a bit more exciting. West Brom against Arsenal. We know what West Brom is going to do. They're going to sit back, and to be honest, so this decision to get rid of Bilic looks a bit silly now, because at least on their Bilic they were competing, because obviously they got a good draw with Liverpool, but they've been getting results against the big teams anyway. I think they drew away at Man City with Bilic, and I think Spurs needed a like goal to beat them and stuff. So they drew with Chelsea as well, so they've been doing all right in the big games. It's been the results. His first game they lost 3-0 to Villa, and then they were smashed 5-0 at home the other night by Leeds as well. So at the moment, it's looking very, very bleak for West Brom, and I don't see it getting any better here. Arsenal have won back-to-back games, and it's a perfect game, I think, for Arsenal to turn up and make it 3 in a row, and it really would be a big turning point. If you can win 3 games in a row in this league, your chances of going up at table is going to be, because the table's so tight. 1 in 3 games like that, you're going to completely catapult. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Arsenal 1. Moving on to Sunday, Burnley against Fulham. This will probably be a shocking game to watch. Fulham obviously been suffering with COVID, and Burnley just seem to have a knack at winning games at home against teams around them. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 Burnley 1. Moving on, Newcastle against Leicester. Again, Newcastle, we know what Newcastle's going to do. They're going to sit back. Great result against Liverpool. But I'll be surprised if they can do that again. Leicester seem to be very, very good away from home, and not so good at home. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 Leicester 1. 4:30 Chelsea Man City. You'd probably think it'd be the game of the weekend, but for me, I think City have 5 players out from self-isolating plus injuries. So City are going to be depleted. A lot of people say City have a great squad, but if you look at the squad, it's not as good as our years. I think if you're going to hit Man City, this is the weekend to get them. So they've got a big cup game too in the week against United in the semi-final, so they're going to have an eye on that. I think it's a perfect time to play Man City and a perfect time for Chelsea to get back on track. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 Chelsea 1. And Monday night, Southampton against Liverpool. Should be a good game, actually. Forgot about that one. Southampton against Liverpool. Should be a good game. Southampton, they're pretty consistent. They've had a bit of a dip, but there have been a lot of draws in there. Haven't been seeing to get ones recently. And Liverpool have been drawing a lot of games, so for that reason, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And that's the podcast for this week. So just before we go again, I want to wish everyone a happy new year. I'll be back again some stage this week. Looking back on all these games, I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about moving forward. So thanks for watching.